Hello, and thank you for watching Jackson Bleachers college football best bets for week 3. We are finally to week 3. It actually kicks off tonight, and as the college football season keeps rolling on, we're going to continue to get a better idea of how good each team really is. And it's still a little bit of a guess, but we have way more clarity now than we did 2 weeks ago. Going back to week 2 for a minute, a couple of things stood out. At least when it comes to picking against the spread. And number one is Arizona is absolutely awful. They're a disgrace. They're supposed to be good. They were an outside favorite to win the Pac-12. Khalil Tate was a favorite to win the Heisman, and it's been a terrible season so far. Number two, Willie Taggart's in some hot water at Florida. You thought that maybe Florida State fans are hoping that maybe that opening night, the Labor Day game, was a fluke. But then last week, having to go wire to wire with Samford, not Stanford, but Samford out of Birmingham, that's a disaster. And now they're actually I believe they're a 3-point favorite at Syracuse. That's rough. That's not where Florida State needs to be. And then number 3, Georgia is by far the best team in the SEC East, and it's not even close. With Florida losing to Kentucky, Tennessee's not where they need to be yet. Georgia absolutely throttled South Carolina. Vanderbilt's not a threat, and Missouri's not really a threat, at least not yet. So Georgia already pretty much has the East locked up unless there's some kind of collapse of epic proportions. But getting back to last week being against the spread, we were 2-2, and that brings us to 5-3 on the season. So we're still way ahead. Even though last week we split, we broke even, we're way ahead on the season. We were right about Mississippi State getting a pretty big road win over Kansas State in Manhattan, and App State also got a huge road win at Charlotte. But we were wrong on BYU and Central Michigan. So talk about the BYU thing for a minute, being wrong on them. As soon as the Arizona and Houston game started Saturday morning, I knew taking BYU was a big mistake. I took BYU at home against a not outstanding California team because of an overreaction because of what looked like a huge opening night win on the road at Arizona. But after watching Arizona, how bad they looked against Houston, that was way more about how bad the Wildcats are than how good BYU is, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. Then on the other hand, the other loss was more of a surprise to, I think, everybody outside of Lawrence, Kansas, just because I took Central Michigan over to I believe they were a 6-point favorite, but it may have been a 3-point favorite. I don't really remember. But Jayhawks went to Central Michigan for a mid-afternoon game, and they beat the absolute crap out of the Chippewas. And the theory behind taking Central was easy. It was real simple. They hung around with Kentucky on the road a week ago. They covered that game. And then you have one of the worst teams in not just FBS, but all of college football in Kansas coming into town. They're going to Central, and so why not? It was a less than a 1-touchdown line. Why not? It seems like it was a no-brainer to take Central. But with the win on Saturday, believe it or not, that's Kansas. That snapped Kansas's 46-game road losing streak over 9 seasons. So with all that in mind, if I had to repick that game again, I would definitely take Central Michigan again, even though Kansas ran away with that game. But so let's move on to some of the games this week. So far, I've got 3 that I've pulled the trigger on, and I got 3 more that I'm really tempted in. But I may end up doing it, I may not. We'll have to check back in before that. But before we get into that, as always, this is intended for entertainment purposes only and not intended for anything illegal. So the first game this weekend that I like Hawaii +7 at Army. Some places this line's gone to +6, but right now it's plus the one I like the best, Hawaii +7 at Army. Hawaii has quietly had a surprisingly good start to 2018. They opened their season in week 0 and beat Colorado State in Fort Collins. I think they were a 17-point underdog, and they beat Colorado State. They ran away with that. They blew the game wide open early, kind of let the Rams back into it, but held on for a double-digit win. And that's the same Colorado team that just beat Arkansas last week 43-34, or same Colorado State team that just beat Arkansas last week 43-34. that Colorado State team is going to the swamp this Saturday. But back to Hawaii, their offense has proven they have the ability to light up the scoreboard. They have 145 points through just 3 games, and all 3 of their opponents have been FBS schools, so it's not like they've been playing a cupcake schedule. There are a few question marks when it comes to their defense, though. The Rainbow Warriors defense gave up 34 points to Colorado State, 41 to Navy, and 29 to Rice. But Army, kind of like Navy, runs a tricky triple option offense. But with Hawaii already seeing Navy, they didn't have a ton of success against it, giving up 41 points, but at least they've seen it. So you would think that that's going to give their defense a little bit more of an advantage this week as it did 2 weeks ago when they were going into Navy, because at least now they have actual game experience against it. And don't expect them to stop it a lot, but I think they'll get enough stops to give their offense plenty of chances to win the game. Because I think the Black Knights offense should be able to put up just about as many points as it wants to. I think their offense will keep rolling, and I think not only do they cover the +7, but I think they win the game outright. And that game, I haven't done it yet, but I'm looking at maybe the money line on that, because I'd be surprised if Hawaii doesn't win the game outright. But that'll be one to keep watching. Maybe figure that one out Saturday morning before everything kicks off. But number 2, I like Miami minus 10.5 at Toledo, but buy the half a point. Buy it down to Miami minus 10. I know in week 1 the Canes got rocked by LSU, but they got back on track Saturday, even though it was against an FCS team. That FCS team was Savannah State. And 2 weeks ago, there was not much to like about their performance. Malik Rozier looked lost. LSU carved up that Canes defense the entire night. But they got some much-needed confidence back after blowing the doors off of Savannah State. And now this is a really weird road game. They're going to Toledo. That's just, I don't get why Miami would travel up to Toledo, but they are. And because this is a road matchup against a far inferior team early in the day, it's an 11 a.m. Well, I guess it's a noon kick up in Toledo. I believe that's in the Eastern time zone. This was set up to be a trap game, but I think with Miami already having a loss this year, you can throw that out the window because they know they got to show up 100% ready for the game. They can't afford a hiccup this week, and they need to beat Toledo big. The Rockets are 1-0 on the young season. Their one win came 3 weeks ago when they annihilated VMI 66-3. I think Toledo has a good shot at keeping it close throughout most of the game because they are one of the best teams in the MAC. But I don't think anybody thinks that Toledo is as good or better than Miami because they're not. I think it may be close for 3 quarters, but Miami will pull away. And don't overthink this one. Miami wins by double digits easy. And if you want to be played on the safe side, buy the half a point. I bought the half a point. Take Miami at minus 10. Then the last game, at least the last one so far that I pulled the trigger on, is Mizzou minus 7.5 at Purdue. Buy the half a point. Buy it down to 7. Missouri is 2-0 in 2018, but they haven't played anybody special yet. The Boilermakers are off to a miserable 0-2 start. And like Missouri, they haven't really played anybody yet either. I mean, if you want to call Northwestern somebody, I don't. I don't think Northwestern's any good, but you could argue, I guess, if you wanted to, that Northwestern's a decent team. But the biggest difference to me between these two teams is that Mizzou is beating the 2 teams they played and should have beat, while Purdue is not. And Mizzou didn't just beat them; they beat the crap out of them. Again, Northwestern, that's not just an awful loss. They should have won the game. I was disappointed they didn't win the game, but losing to Eastern Michigan at home last week is inexcusable. This will be Missouri's first road game of the season, but their quarterback Drew Lock has proven he has the ability to lead his team to a win away from Como, and the Tigers' offense will be too much for Purdue to handle. And much like Mississippi State did last week, they'll beat a lower-tier Power 5 team on the road by double digits. Mizzou minus 7, if you buy the half point, is almost stealing money. I'd kind of think I bought the half point just to be safe. Don't really think I'll need it. But I see Mizzou winning this one by 3 or 4 touchdowns and it being over by halftime. I see this turning out almost like the really similar to Mississippi State, K-State last weekend. So then, those are the 3 that I've locked in. I like the lines on 3 other ones. I gotta find them wherever they went. One of them was Washington at Utah. Washington barely lost to Auburn, and they're less than a touchdown favorite on the road. That's a late kick Saturday night. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that one, but that one's one that I'm gonna keep watching all the way, maybe until kickoff. Another one I really like is Arizona State is less than a touchdown favorite at San Diego State. San Diego State's good, and we're not real sure how good Arizona State is. I do know that they've looked great in the first 2 weeks, and that they stunned Michigan State last week. I don't know if I'll end up doing anything with this game or not, but that's another one to watch. That's also a really late kick on Saturday night. And then the other one that I was looking at is USC is a 3-point underdog at Texas, and I kind of think that the Trojans will win this game outright. Not because I think USC is any good. Obviously, they looked terrible last Saturday, but I just think Texas is still miserable. So that one's another one to maybe watch. But for right now, just to run back through the ones to lock in for sure: Hawaii +7 at Army, Miami -10.5. Buy that half point to buy it down to Miami -10 at Toledo. And then Missouri -7.5 at Purdue, and buy that half a point to buy it down to Missouri -7 at Purdue. But yeah, that's what we got so far. Don't forget to check back here. I'll comment any changes I make, or at Jackson Bleacher on Twitter or on jacksonbleachers.com for any kind of update. And thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.